My 80th birthday, a day I thought would be filled with love, laughter, maybe a few tears of joy turned into a nightmare. I sat at the head of the table. My family gathered around, smiles plastered on their faces, but it felt wrong. Then, my daughter, my own flesh and blood, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're a failure." The words hit harder than anything I'd ever felt. My heart stopped. Failure? Me? Was this really happening? The room, once warm and familiar, now felt like a prison. All those years, all the sacrifices, and in one moment, I was reduced to nothing. Wanted to scream, to ask why, but I couldn't. All I could do was stare at her, this stranger I once called my daughter. I'd wonder how the hell we'd ended up here. I didn't know it then, but that moment, it would change everything. Stick. Around this is just the beginning. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. It was like my chest caved in, the air sucked out of my lungs. I sat there at the table, staring at her, at my own daughter. Didn't make sense. Still doesn't. I couldn't understand how she could say that to me, especially after everything. I raised her. I gave her everything I had. And this is what I got in return? I tried to keep my voice steady. What did you just say? She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her eyes cold. I said, "You're a failure, Dad. Look at you. You're nothing." I blinked, unable to comprehend. "You think I'm nothing?" She didn't flinch. "You've never been there. It's all these years. And what do we have to show for it? A broken family, a house full of empty promises." Her words hit like fists. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had worked my entire life to build something for us. I had sacrificed so much. And yet, here I was, sitting at the table, with my own daughter telling me I was worthless. The room felt smaller, colder. The faces of the others blurred around me. Son, my wife, they all stayed silent. Why weren't they saying anything? Were they really just going to let her speak to me like this? I stood up, the chair scraping across the floor. "You're my daughter," I said, my voice cracking. "How can you say that? It's after everything." Her expression didn't change. "You don't get it, do you? You think you've been a good father, a good husband, but you failed us, all of us. Look at your life. What's there to show for it? A pile of regrets." I couldn't even look at her anymore. I turned to my son, my wife. "Tell me this isn't true." They both looked away. Neither of them had the courage to back me up. It was like the walls were closing in, trapping me in this suffocating reality. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. My head spun. I could feel my world crumbling around me. Every memory, every sacrifice, every ounce of love I poured into this family seemed like it meant nothing. I couldn't hold back the anger any longer. You think you know what failure is? You don't know anything? Do you think I've just sat here, done nothing? You think I didn't try? And this is how you repay me? By calling me a failure? Our lips curled into a bitter smile. "You didn't give us anything, Dad. You were always too busy with your work, your pride. We needed you, and you weren't there. You think we owe you something for the scraps you gave us? For the things you didn't do?" I could feel the blood rushing to my face, the heat of rage building, but it wasn't enough to drown out the emptiness. My whole body shook with disbelief. This was my family, people I thought I could trust, the people who should have loved me the most. I turned to my wife. How can you let her talk to me like this? But she didn't answer. She just sat there, staring at her plate, avoiding my eyes like she had done so many times over the past few years. I felt my heart sink further. I had given them everything. Everything. And this is what I had in return. Silence. Betrayal. And now, a daughter who couldn't even look me in the eye without hurling insults. I turned back to her. "So what? Think this is it? That I'm done? That I've failed you all? Is this what you wanted to break me?" She shrugged. "You're already broken, Dad. Can't you see that? We're all just tired of pretending everything's fine when it isn't." It felt like a slap, my own flesh and blood, telling me I wasn't worth anything, that I was just a failure. But I wasn't sure who had failed who. Did I fail them? Or had they failed me? because I was struggling to see anything left of the family I had once cherished. I grabbed my coat and walked out of the room. I needed air. I needed to get away from them. The suffocating weight of their words, their coldness, it was too much. I stumbled out the door, the night air cutting through me like ice. My hands were shaking. I leaned against the fence, trying to steady myself. I couldn't even understand. The betrayal. I didn't know what hurt more, the sting of her words or the realization that I had given so much of myself, only to be tossed aside when I needed them most, and in the silence of the night, all I could think was, how did we get here? I didn't know how, but I was about to find out. It was going to change everything. I couldn't just let it go. I had to confront her. I couldn't let that insult, that betrayal fester inside me without answers. I thought maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe she didn't really mean it. Maybe I was just misinterpreting things. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I knew I needed to face it. I needed to face her. I stormed into her room, my fists clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. I had no idea what I was going to say, but I needed to say something. I found her sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal. Like what had happened earlier didn't matter at all. Look at me, I spat, my voice shaking with rage. She didn't even flinch. She just looked up, unfazed, and raised an eyebrow. What is it, Dad? My heart pounded harder and I felt my throat tighten. You think you can just walk away after what you said? After what you did? Her gaze never wavered. I didn't do anything. I felt like I had been slapped. Called me a failure? You, Jed. She cut me off, her tone cold and dismissive. It's not that big of a deal. Stop overreacting. Overreacting? You insulted me in front of everyone. You tore me down in my own home on my birthday. Why? What did I ever do to deserve that? She sighed and leaned back on her bed, looking like she couldn't care less. Honestly, I'm just tired. Tired of pretending everything's okay. You've always been so caught up in your work, your pride. You think you did everything for us, but you didn't. You were never really here. I froze. My mind couldn't process what she was saying. What do you mean I wasn't here? I worked every day so you could have a better life. I busted my ass for you. Exactly, she interrupted again. You worked for us, but you never were with us. Think money and things make up for everything, but they don't. We needed you, Dad. I needed you. I staggered back, the pain of her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. So, all those years, my whole life, I just gave to you, and it wasn't enough? I wasn't enough. She didn't answer immediately. She just looked at me, almost pityingly. You were never enough because you were always there but never present. You were physically here, yeah, but emotionally. You checked out a long time ago. You were never really involved in our lives. You were too busy with yourself, with your damn work. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or cry. My hands were shaking so violently, I had to grab the edge of the door frame just to keep from collapsing. Is that how you really feel? My voice broke. But I didn't care. Is this really who you think I am? She shrugged. It's just the truth, Dad. You don't want to face it, but you can't change it now. I've had to take care of myself. I can't depend on you, and I don't think I ever really could. That hit me like a ton of bricks. Like a heavy weight crashing down, crushing everything I had believed in. My own daughter, telling me she couldn't depend on me, telling me that all the effort I had put in, all the years I had spent trying to make their lives better, meant nothing. I felt the rage rise in me again, but it wasn't just anger. It was disbelief, confusion, pain. How could I have been so blind? I thought I had given them everything, and yet it wasn't enough. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. I thought you were my daughter, I thought. I thought you understood. All those years, all that love, and this is what I get. She looked up at me with a blank expression. You didn't love us, not in the way we needed. You loved us in your own way, sure, but we needed more. I wanted to scream, to shout at her, but I didn't. I couldn't. The reality of it was sinking in too deeply. She wasn't just angry at me. She was disappointed in me. I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't control the emotions rushing through me, anger mixed with regret, fear, and betrayal. I had spent my entire life trying to give them everything they wanted, but it was never the right thing. It was never enough. And now here I was alone with the harsh truth that my own daughter, the one I loved most in this world, saw me as a failure. My legs felt weak. So you just threw everything away? Everything we had? Her voice was flat, emotionless. No, Dad. You threw it away a long time ago. We've just been waiting for you to notice. Turned and walked out of the room, unable to stay in that suffocating space a moment longer. I needed air. I needed to breathe. But no matter how deep I breathed, it didn't make the suffocating weight of her words go away. They clung to me, choking me with the truth that I had failed. I had failed her, failed my family, and the worst part? I didn't even know how or when it all went wrong. I couldn't sleep. The night felt endless, a dark void where I kept replaying the conversation with her. Each word she said echoed in my head, growing louder, sharper with each passing minute. Failure, not enough. You're just a shadow. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, anything. But I was numb, completely numb. Sitting alone in my darkened living room, I stared at the empty chair where she used to sit. It was always there, so familiar, like a piece of my life I had taken for granted. Now, it felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. I glanced at the clock. It was late early morning now. But I didn't care. Time had stopped making sense hours ago. I'd been staring at the wall for so long that my eyes were beginning to blur. I took a deep breath, trying to clear my head, but it wasn't working. I was suffocating under the weight of her words. I could hear her voice still. In the back of my mind, you were never really there. How could she say that, after everything? I worked for you, for all of you. But the more I tried to fight it, the clearer it became. She wasn't wrong, not completely. I had been there physically, yes. I paid the bills. I made sure they had everything they needed. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being present. I had been so focused on providing, on being the perfect image of a father and husband, that I forgot to actually be one. I thought I could fill the gaps with work, with things. But things don't love you. Things don't care. I closed my eyes, feeling the sting of reality set in. She wasn't wrong. The tears threatened to come, but I didn't let them. I wiped my face, clenched my fists. I couldn't afford to be weak anymore. I couldn't let this consume me. For the first time in hours, I felt a strange stillness inside. It wasn't peace, not exactly, but it was a clarity I hadn't had in a long time. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to move forward. I stood up, the weight of my years catching up with me. I felt old, like I'd been stuck. In place for too long. Betrayal had shattered me, yes. But maybe it was time for something else to break. Maybe it was time for me to stop hiding behind my own mistakes and do something about it. I wasn't just going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let her words or their judgment destroy everything I had left. I walked over to the window and stared out into the empty night. There was a certain calm to the silence, the stillness of the world outside. It was peaceful, almost like the world was waiting for me to make a choice. I was a fool to think that everything would always work. Out! I had lived my life with the expectation that things would just fall into place. But I couldn't keep waiting. The truth was, I had the power to change my life now. I had the power to redefine who I was, regardless of the past, regardless of the hurt I'd felt. I turned away from the window and glanced at the framed pictures on the wall. Old memories, smiles from a time when I thought I had it all figured out. But the thing was, those moments didn't define me. I had let them. But they didn't. I didn't need them to. I wasn't the failure she said I was. I wasn't. I had worked hard. I had loved them with everything I had. But that wasn't the whole picture. I had neglected parts of myself in the process. I had forgotten who I was outside of being their father, their husband, and I'd let myself fade into the background. I clenched my jaw, determination bubbling up inside me. I was still here. I was still standing. And no one, not my daughter, not my wife, not anyone was going to take that away from me. I wasn't going to let this define my future. I had spent so many years living for others, living up to expectations that weren't even my own. But now, I had the chance to rebuild, to stop pretending, stop hiding behind my failures and mistakes. I didn't need their approval to move forward. I didn't need them to validate my worth. I was enough. I had to believe that. For my own sake, I had to change. I had to reclaim what was mine. It wouldn't happen overnight. I knew that. This wasn't going to be some quick fix. But it had to start somewhere, and it had to start with me. For the first time in a long time, I felt something other than despair. It wasn't hope exactly, but it was something close. I walked to the door, grabbed my coat, and stepped outside. The cool night air hit my skin, and I breathed deeply, inhaling the fresh scent of the world around me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know how things would work out with my family. But I wasn't going to let their judgment, their betrayal, keep me chained to the past. It was time to move forward. It was time to take my life back. It's funny how life can change with just a shift in perspective. For so long, I had let myself believe that I needed them, my family. But now, it was clear. They needed me too, in their own twisted way. I wasn't the man they had always accused me of being. I wasn't their failure. And I wasn't going to let this betrayal go unnoticed. At first, I didn't know where to start. I had no grand plans for revenge or punishment. I didn't need to get my hands dirty, not directly. No, I was going to let them feel the consequences. Let their own decisions unravel them. And I'd stand by quietly, watching it happen. I wasn't a man of action anymore, at least not in the way I used to be. But I had learned something. People often forget the power of silence, of doing nothing, sometimes letting someone implode. On their own is far more effective than any kind of direct confrontation. The first shift came with my daughter. She thought she was safe, but she wasn't. I had spent years building connections, quietly pushing my way into circles that she didn't even know existed. She thought she was so clever, so self-sufficient, yet I knew where her vulnerabilities were. I knew where she had messed up. I took it slow at first. Phone call here, a conversation there. All casual, nothing that would raise suspicion. But soon, the rumors started. Little things, whispers about her finances, her relationship issues. I didn't have to make any calls. People in her circles started calling me, people who had once been loyal to her, who now saw cracks in her perfect facade. It wasn't about revenge, really. I didn't want to see her suffer. But I wasn't going to let her think she could destroy me and walk away scot-free. She needed to feel what I felt, just for a moment. She needed to understand the weight of her words, the damage she had caused. I couldn't make her apologize, couldn't make her change. But I could let her watch as her life began to slip through her fingers, piece by piece, and the first sign of that shift. It came through a meeting I hadn't planned on. She was at a networking event, all smiles, her usual charm in full force. But as I watched from a distance, I saw her face falter when a key client, someone she had relied on for years, barely acknowledged her. The client walked away without even a polite nod, and I could tell, deep down, that it stung. She wasn't used to being ignored. I smiled to myself. It wasn't anything obvious, just a brief moment of discomfort. But it was a start. She was beginning to see the cracks. I didn't make any overt moves. No confrontation, no accusations. I simply let the tide of consequences roll in. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding, slowly but surely. I started focusing on the things that mattered to me again, the things I had neglected for so long. I took up hobbies I'd once loved, called old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. I started to remember what it felt like to have my life, to feel the air of freedom that I hadn't breathed in so long. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't angry at her or my wife or anyone. I had let go of that weight. The bitterness was starting to fade. Instead, I felt something else, a quiet satisfaction, the knowledge that I was in control. But there was something else too, a sort of peace. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Not to her, not to anyone. It was enough, just as I was. And I was going to move forward, regardless of what they thought. The next shift came a few days later when my wife, who had been strangely quiet in all of this, reached out to me. She wanted to meet. I wasn't sure what to expect. Did she think that I would fall back into the same pattern of giving in? We met at a cafe, a neutral space where I could see her without the weight of the house, the memories, the expectations. She sat across from me, her hands folded tightly on the table. She looked older, tired. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice low, hesitant. I raised an eyebrow, not giving her anything. "About what?" She sighed, her face heavy with something that resembled regret. "About ... everything. About you, about me, about us." I waited for her to continue, but nothing came for a long while. She had no idea what to say. She was so used to me being the one to fix things, to take charge. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. "I'm listening," I said finally, my voice steady but distant. I wasn't angry with her. I wasn't angry at anyone anymore. But I wasn't going to be that man who bent to everyone's will. Not anymore. "I don't know what happened to us, Frank," she finally whispered, her eyes avoiding mine. I've been thinking about everything. "I know you have," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "But it's not just about thinking." "Is it? It's about doing?" She looked up at me, startled. "What do you mean?" I smiled faintly. But it wasn't a smile of malice. It was simply the truth. I'm done fixing things, Karen. I'm done trying to make people see me for what I am, for what I've done. I've given you everything, but I can't do it anymore. The silence hung between us, thick with the weight of my words, and I knew deep down that she was beginning to understand. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't desperate for validation. And that was the last thing she could ever take from me. I stood up, my movements calm, collected. I wasn't angry with her, but I knew that the balance was shifting. I was no longer the one begging for approval. I walked out of the cafe, and as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized something. Things had already changed. I had already won. Don't know why I thought things would be different. That maybe, just maybe, this would all work itself out. But here I was, watching the cracks start to form around my daughter's life, and I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel joy. I just felt detached. I had always prided myself on being the fixer. I used to think that was my role in this family. If something went wrong, I could make it right. But now I was watching things unravel. And the worst part was I had no intention of stopping it. I had already let go of the anger. But I wasn't going to ignore the consequences of her betrayal either. I didn't take any pleasure in this. I didn't want her to suffer. But she needed to feel the weight of what she'd done. That was all. I hadn't made any grand gestures, no public humiliation. I wasn't the type for that. Instead, I worked quietly behind the scenes, taking small actions that, over time, started to pile up. It was almost like I was a ghost, making sure that everything she thought was secure began to slowly shift beneath her. She didn't even know it was happening yet, but she would soon. The first shift, one I had seen coming, came through the professional network she had carefully built over the years. She had always prided herself on her connections, on her ability to climb the social ladder. But things weren't as solid as she thought. I had a few business acquaintances, people in her field who knew exactly where the weak spots were. It wasn't about sabotage. It was about putting the truth out there, letting her world fall apart on its own. And bit by bit, it did. Her biggest client, the one she had relied on for years, started pulling back. Slowly at first, with little changes, a missed meeting here, a delay in communication there. Then, one day, a deal she had worked so hard for fell through. And as I expected, she had no idea why. I didn't have to lift a finger. I just made sure the right information got to the right people. It wasn't even malicious. It was the truth. But the truth had a way of breaking things apart when it was left unchecked. I had to admit. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing she was starting to feel it. There was nothing overt about it, no dramatic confrontation, no glaring evidence that I was behind any of it, but I knew. And I could see her discomfort as she scrambled to maintain her position. Her once polished facade was starting to crack, and the people she had once depended on began to turn away. It was the beginning of her downfall. And it felt like the natural order of things. She wasn't even aware of what was happening yet. But soon she would be. And that, I realized, was enough. I didn't need to be the one to make it obvious. She was already falling, and all I had to do was let gravity take its course. Meanwhile, I wasn't just watching from the sidelines. I was actively rebuilding my own life, piece by piece. I wasn't the same person I had been a month ago or even a week ago. I'd found parts of myself I thought I had lost parts. I had buried under the weight of expectations and responsibilities. I reconnected with old friends, the ones I had let slip away while I focused on being everything for everyone else. I started taking walks, feeling the weight of the world lifting off me, step by step. I took time to reflect on the things I had neglected in my own life, simple things, like reading a book in silence, or just sitting and listening to the sounds of nature. I wasn't angry at my daughter. I wasn't angry at anyone. I was, in a way, grateful. Grateful that I had finally learned to let go. I was grateful that I had come to understand that their actions didn't have to define me, but that didn't mean I couldn't let them feel the consequences of their choices. I couldn't pretend that I was innocent in all this. I had a part to play, just as they did. But I was no longer the one holding the weight of the world on my shoulders. And when I saw how hard my daughter was working to patch things up, to salvage what she could, a part of me couldn't help but wonder, does she see it yet? Does she see what she's done? I didn't need an apology from her. I didn't need her to beg for my forgiveness. I didn't need anything from her at all. I was already moving forward. But I couldn't ignore the fact that she was struggling. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before she realized the full extent of what she had lost. The truth, no matter how carefully hidden, always comes out. And when it did, there would be no one left for her to blame but herself. I was watching, but I wasn't taking pleasure in it. In some strange way, I felt a quiet sorrow for her. For all her pride, all her ambition, she had failed to see the cost of her actions. She had taken everything I gave her for granted, and now she was facing the price. I was in control, and yet all I felt was a deep, heavy sadness. This wasn't the way I had wanted things to be, but it was the way they were. And in this silence, as I watched everything slowly start to unravel, I understood something. There was no joy in watching someone else fall. There was only the realization that the consequences had always been there, waiting. And when they finally came, it wasn't punishment. It was justice. It's quiet, simple, and inevitable. I could see it coming before it hit. The signs were there, the cracks growing wider, the tension building, and she didn't even realize how fast it was all slipping through her fingers. At first it was subtle. A missed deadline here, a careless mistake there. But soon everything she had worked for started to crumble. The clients who once looked up to her began to whisper behind her back. The relationships she had spent years cultivating withered under the weight of her own neglect. I watched as she scrambled to salvage what was left, throwing herself into work even harder, but it was already too late. I didn't feel any satisfaction, no sense of vindication. What I felt, strangely enough, was something like indifference. She was unraveling, yes, but she was doing it all by herself. I didn't need to push her. Her own choices were enough to destroy her. One morning, I received a call from an old colleague of hers, someone I had known for years, someone who had worked alongside her in the same industry. The tone of his voice was low, guarded, like he was doing everything to hold himself together. "You heard?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. I didn't need to ask what he was talking about. I already knew. "Yeah, I heard." "She's in trouble," he said, almost as if it were a confession. "Real trouble. Clients are pulling out. That deal she thought she had gone. She's a mess, Frank. I don't think she's going to make it out of this one." I couldn't say anything. I didn't need to. Wasn't asking for sympathy. And I wasn't offering it. In some strange way, I felt like I was already too far gone to care. I wasn't angry. Wasn't even sad. I just didn't care. I knew she would come crawling back eventually. She had to. Desperation has a way of breaking down walls. of erasing the pride and arrogance people cling to when they think they're untouchable. I could already hear it in her voice, the crackling anxiety, the tightness in her words when she would finally admit defeat, and she did. A few days later, I received a text from her. "Can we talk?" I read the words brief and loaded with something I couldn't quite place. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to, just to see what she would say, but I didn't have the energy to play her game anymore. It wasn't like before. When she had called me a failure, I had been shaken, knocked off balance. I had been desperate to repair what had been broken, to fix things that I couldn't control. But now, after everything that had happened, after all the silent shifts, I didn't need to fix anything. I didn't even need to listen. She tried again the next day, calling me this time. I let it ring. She left a message, but it was like everything she said was muffled, her voice hollow. "I don't know what happened, Dad. Please." "I don't know where to turn. I've messed up. I need you." I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest. She was unraveling, and I was watching from a distance. No part of me felt the old rage or hurt. What was left of that had already been burned away. What remained now was something colder. A quiet certainty that she had made her bed, and she had to lie in it. I wasn't going to be the one to pick up the pieces. I spent my days quietly, taking slow steps back into my own life. I started focusing more on myself, finding joy in the simple things again. A walk in the park, reading a book I had long since forgotten. My relationships with the people who mattered to me most grew stronger, while the people who had once been closest to me started to feel like strangers. Meanwhile, her life continued to slip, one event at a time. The once tight circle of her friends began to fragment. Her colleagues whispered behind her back, wondering if she had the strength to bounce back. No one was willing to trust her anymore. I could feel it, even from a distance, the shift in her social standing. The way people moved away from her. She sent another message a few days later. This one was different. She was pleading now. Desperation hung in the air, like it was the only thing keeping her standing. "I know I've hurt you, but this is bigger than just me. I need help, Dad. I don't know what to do." I read the text, and then I put the phone down. I didn't hate her. I didn't even feel anger anymore. There was no satisfaction in watching her struggle. I didn't need her apology, and I didn't want it. No. I wasn't the man who needed others to fix him anymore. She needed to fix herself. It was her turn to deal with the mess she had made, and there was nothing I could do for her, not anymore. I had spent my life trying to be everything for everyone else. But now I had learned. I had learned that the only person I needed to fix was me. The world I had known was gone, and I was no longer part of it, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't even angry. I was just ... free. I wasn't her savior. I wasn't anyone's savior. I wasn't going to be the one to pick up the pieces when she had the chance to fix it herself. She had to pay the price for her own actions, and I didn't have to be the one to make sure she did. I knew it was coming. I knew she would reach out. Eventually, they always do, don't they? When everything falls apart, when they realize there's nothing left for them, that's when they turn back, desperate for any kind of reconciliation.
Yes.
They hope you'll pick up the pieces they left behind. But I wasn't going to be that man anymore. I wasn't going to fix this for her. Not this time. She called again. Her voice, now shaky, left a message on my phone. "Dad, please. I can't do this alone. I know I've messed up. I know I hurt you, but I need you. I need your help. Please. I'm sorry." It felt like a punch to the gut. Because of the apologino, that didn't matter anymore, but because of the weight of the desperation in her voice. It's the same voice I had once trusted, once believed in. She had destroyed that trust, and now she was trying to rebuild something that couldn't be rebuilt. I didn't call her back. I didn't need to. I already knew what was happening. She was unraveling, and she needed someone to blame. She needed me to be her anchor once again. But I wasn't going to be that person, not anymore. She tried again the next day, this time with a text. "I've made so many mistakes, Dad. I know I can't change what I did, but please, I need you. I'm lost. I read it, but I didn't respond. I didn't need to. There was nothing to say. She had already made her choice. Had already chosen to betray me, to tear apart the trust we'd built over the years. Now, she had to live with the consequences. I went on with my day. I had my routine. My life was moving forward, piece by piece. I was reclaiming my dignity, my peace, and every day I was stronger for it. The silence between us felt comfortable. Now, it wasn't cold. It wasn't harsh. It was simply necessary. She didn't need me to rescue her. She needed to face the reality of her actions. A few days later, I saw her at the local cafe. She didn't see me at first, sitting in the corner, sipping my coffee, watching the world pass by. But then she walked in, her face drawn, her steps heavy. I watched her scan the room, and when her eyes met mine, she froze. For a moment, I thought she might turn around and leave. But she didn't. She came to my table, her movements slow, hesitant. "Dad," she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "I need to talk." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her, really looked at her. The once confident, self-assured woman was now nothing more than a shadow of herself. There was no pride left in her. Only the remnants of someone who had realized too late what she had lost. I motioned for her to sit. She did, carefully, as though afraid any movement might shatter what was left of her. I didn't speak. I let her take the lead if she could. "I messed up, Dad," she said, her voice cracking. "Didn't realize how much you meant to me. How much everything you did for us meant. I took you for granted. I was so focused on myself, on my own success, that I didn't see how much I was hurting you." I sat back, still quiet, still calm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't anything anymore. I had learned that anger only gave power to those who didn't deserve it. Sadness only drained me of the strength I had spent so long building back. What I felt now wasn't emotion, it was clarity. "I've lost everything," she continued, her eyes welling with tears. "My reputation, my business, and ... I've lost you. I didn't think you would ever walk away from me, but I pushed you too far. And now I'm paying the price." Her voice wavered, the cracks in her once perfect armor visible for the first time. I felt nothing, not because I was cold, but because I understood. This was her reckoning. The one I had known was coming from the moment she first tore me down. I hadn't made her fall. She had done it herself. Now she had to face it. "Dad, please," she whispered, leaning forward. "I'll do anything. I'll make it right. I'm sorry. Please just tell me what to do." I looked at her, and for the first time in ages, I wasn't consumed by the need to protect her. I wasn't the father who had always stepped in to fix things. I had learned that I couldn't fix this for her. She had to do it herself. I didn't say a word. Instead, I slowly stood up, taking my coat from the back of the chair. I looked down at her, the woman I once thought I knew, and I saw her, broken, desperate, and empty. I saw that she had made her choices, and she had to live with them. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice low but steady, "but I can't help you anymore. You're going to have to fix this on your own." I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind. There was no satisfaction in it, no victory, just the simple truth that some things cannot be repaired. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. I had learned that lesson long ago, and now she had learned it too. Asterisk, I didn't expect her to come again. I didn't think she would have the courage to face me after everything that had happened, but there she was, standing outside my door, her head lowered, her shoulders slumped under the weight of everything she had lost. She had come to the end of her rope, I could see that. The arrogance that once defined her was gone. All that remained was the broken woman who had finally realized the depth of her mistake. I opened the door slowly, letting her stand there for a moment, just long enough to see how much she had changed. She wasn't the confident, proud woman who had insulted me on my birthday, the one who had turned her back without a second thought. This woman, standing before me now, was someone I barely recognized, She was smaller somehow, quieter. I could hear the tremor in her voice before she even spoke. "I need to talk to you," she said, her eyes filled with a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. I didn't invite her in. I didn't need to. The space between us felt wide enough. "What do you want?" Her gaze flickered to the ground as if she couldn't bear to meet my eyes. "I don't know how to fix this. I've messed up so badly, Dad. I've lost everything, my career, my friends, my dignity. But I never thought I'd lose you." She took a step forward, but I didn't move. I just stood there, waiting for her to finish. "I know I hurt you," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't understand how much you gave me, how much you did for me. I thought you'd always be there, that you would never walk away from me. But now I see what I've done. I see that I pushed you too far. I destroyed everything, and I don't know how to live with it." I didn't say anything. I just let her words hang in the air, heavy with regret, with sorrow. It felt like everything she had built her confidence. Her pride had been stripped away, leaving nothing but an empty shell of the person she used to be. She was broken. I could see it, feel it in the quiet desperation of her voice. There was nothing left for me to fix. "I'm sorry," she said again, her hands shaking. "I never meant to hurt you. Please, forgive me. Please, let me make it right." I looked at her for a long time, feeling the weight of what she had done, but also feeling something else, something that had been absent for so long. Quiet, steady resolve. I wasn't the man who had to prove anything anymore. I wasn't the man who needed her approval or anyone's forgiveness. Is a strange thing, I said, my voice steady. It's not something you can demand. It's not something you can earn by simply saying the words. It's something that takes time, something that has to be earned over years, through actions. But you're not the same person you were when you walked out on me, are you? Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel anything stir inside me. There was no anger, no rage. There was only the realization that this was the end of something I'd spent too long holding on to. "I don't need your apology," I said, quietly but firmly. "I needed you to understand what you did. I needed you to realize the cost of your actions. You've already lost everything that mattered: your reputation, your success, the people you cared about. But the one thing you can't lose is your ability to move forward. You'll have to rebuild. It won't be easy. But you have to do it. On your own, I can't help you anymore." She took another step closer, her voice trembling with raw emotion. "Dad, please, I don't know what to do. I've destroyed everything, and now I don't know who I am. I can't face this alone." I shook my head, the weight of the truth settling around me. "You've been facing it alone. For a while now. I've been standing here, watching you, hoping you'd understand, but you never did. You thought I'd always be there to fix your mess. That's not how it works anymore. Not for me, and not for you." Her shoulders slumped even further, and for the first time, I saw her completely vulnerable. There was no pride left. Deflection, just the raw, ugly truth of what she had done. And in that moment, I felt no satisfaction in seeing her like this. There was no sense of triumph, no part of me that could rejoice in her fall. She had done this to herself, and it was her responsibility to pick up the pieces. "I'm sorry," she said again, softer this time, more to herself than to me. "I'm sorry, Dad. I've lost you, and I can't fix that." "I know I can't." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I had learned long ago that some things couldn't be undone. No amount of apologies, no desperate pleas for forgiveness could repair the damage that had been done. I turned and started to close the door. But before I did, I looked back one last time. "Maybe one day you'll understand," I said, my voice low, "but not today." And with that, I closed the door. I didn't feel relief, or joy, or anger. I just felt empty in a way. But not the kind of emptiness that had weighed me down before. It was a quiet emptiness, the kind that comes from letting go. The kind that comes when you realize that the only person who can truly change your life is you. I had faced it all. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss. And I had come through the other side stronger, more sure of myself than I had ever been. Before, the final lesson had been learned: Not just by her, but by me as well. Some things can't be fixed. Some things can't be undone. But you can always move forward. And that, in the end, is enough. I stand at the window watching the sunset as the colors bleed into the horizon. It's peaceful, quiet, something I never thought I would feel again after everything that has happened. There was a time not to. Long ago, when I thought this would be impossible, when the weight of betrayal, the sting of loss, would bury me beneath it all. But now there's just peace. The last few months have felt like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions, decisions, and realizations. In the beginning, all I wanted was answers. All I wanted was for things to go back to what they were. Spent so much time looking for a way to fix what had been broken, not realizing that the only thing I truly needed to fix was myself. And I did. Found my way back, piece by piece. Reclaimed what I had lost, not through revenge or confrontation, but through quiet acceptance. I don't think I truly understood until now, but the power was always within me. I didn't need to fight for it. Just had to let go of the idea that others could give it back to me. I don't know what happened to her. I don't keep track anymore. Her life is her own, and she's going to have to rebuild it on her own terms. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But I've learned not to concern myself with that anymore. There was a time when I thought I could save her, when I thought that if I could just fix things between us, everything would be right again. But I've come to realize that some things can't be repaired. Some wounds once opened can't be healed by anyone but the person who caused them. That's the lesson she had to learn, not me. And it's the lesson I learned too. No one can take away your peace unless you let them. No one can steal your strength unless you give it up willingly. The past is gone, and nothing will ever change that. But the future? Is that still mine? To shape, I've stopped waiting for apologies. I've stopped holding on to anger or resentment. It's all so exhausting, isn't it? The need for vengeance, for validation, for something from someone who's shown you nothing but betrayal. I've let all of that go. I don't need it anymore. I've rebuilt my life. It's not perfect, but it's mine. I've reconnected with old friends, taken time for myself, found peace in the little things I once overlooked. I wake up every morning with a sense of gratitude, no longer weighed down by what happened before. I'm no longer living for others, trying to prove myself. To anyone, I'm living for me. And that's enough. There are days, though, when I wonder if she's still trying to fix things. If she's still looking for a way back to the person she used to be. The one who thought she could tear everything down without consequence. And maybe she is, but that's her journey now. I can't carry it for her. I can't go back in time and undo the damage. The only thing I can do is keep moving forward, just like I've been doing. The final chapter of our story has already been written, and the ink is dry. I'm no longer looking for answers from her. I found my own. I found a strength I didn't know I had, quiet power that comes from standing firm in the face of everything I've been through. There's no joy in watching someone's life fall apart. I've realized that. No part of me is ever taken. Satisfaction in seeing her struggle. That's not what this is about. This isn't about revenge or getting back at her for the pain she caused. This is about justice. In its purest form, the justice that comes from understanding that actions have consequences, when those consequences aren't always something we can control. Karma doesn't need our help. It's a force of its own. Don't have to be the ones to exact it. Life has a way of working things out, of giving us the lessons we need to grow, even when we don't see it coming. I didn't need to punish her. She was already paying for her choices. And as for me, I've let go. I've embraced my own growth. Realized that there is no redemption to seek, no debt to repay. I've reclaimed my life, and that's more than enough. In the end, I learned something I hadn't expected. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about releasing the hold that past pain has on you so you can move forward. I'm stronger now, but more than that, I'm free. Free from the weight of the past. Free from the chains of betrayal. Free from the need to prove myself to anyone. So this is how it ends. No dramatic showdown. no fiery confrontation. Just a man who has learned to walk away from the things that no longer serve him, to stand tall in the face of what others have done to him. And in doing so, finding peace within himself. And as I stand here, watching the sunset fade into night, I know that I'm ready for whatever comes next, because I've already faced the worst. And it didn't break me. Thank you for listening to my story here, if it touched you somehow. Comment where you're listening from, and send it to someone who maybe needs to remember their own value. Every day there's a new story here on this channel. Stories like mine show that time doesn't weaken, reveals and heals us.